In this video, I'm going to take you through behind the scenes of a recent shoot I just did. Here's some of the images. Now, before I get into the shoot itself, just a quick backstory and some context as to why the shoot was taking place. I actually met Amy last year on another shoot that we did. She was a model that was brought in. We shot some social media content, and through conversation, I found that she was also a photographer herself. We exchanged Instagram contacts last year. I kept an eye on her work ever since, and her work is very different to mine. She's much more stylized with an artistic eye. She shoots very hard light and very contrasty images, and it's quite the opposite to what I usually shoot. My typical style over the years is to work with very soft light, and I wanted to try and pull away from that and try and steer towards more hard light, because that is typically the style for nowadays here in modern 2025. Plus, I just think it's just something different because I'm so stuck in my ways with shooting soft light. And then earlier this year, we brought Amy back for another shoot. And then again, through conversation, I was just expressing some of my struggles with photography. The struggles that I was having more specifically was that I actually shoot photos and videos for a lot of the work that I do in-house. So I don't have much time to be experimental. I just have to try and churn this stuff out as quick as possible. I don't have too much help at all, so realistically speaking, changing over a lighting setup from photography to videography is not very easy at all. That being said, I actually shoot all of my work with constant lighting for this reason, just to streamline the whole process. Also, with the lighting setups that work for video may not work for photos, so it's just one of those things that I play it safe too much. And then through this conversation, Amy actually graciously suggested something because she was actually looking for some updated modeling portfolio images. She has her own studio space. She's got all the lighting equipment. So then we talked about doing a collaboration where I can have a bit more of an experimental type of tone, and she can also help me out and I can pick her brain because she's also a photographer herself. On the actual shoot day itself, we actually went through 4 to 5 different lighting setups and looks. But in this video, I'm actually going to focus on the specific look that I was looking to achieve, just because this video can get way too long. If there's interest in the other looks that you want to find more about as well, let me know in the comments below and I'll do follow-up videos to discuss those looks more specifically. Now, I actually work in the hair and beauty industry here in the UK, and there's a couple of photographers that I've been told to sort of like keep an eye on. And one of those photographers actually featured in a hair publication called Hairdresser's Journal. And this photographer's name is Jack Eames. And there's one particular image that he shot. He shot with a spotlight and he modified the light in such ways where it was just highlighting certain elements of the model's hair and face. The background seemed to be illuminated completely where the model would otherwise fall into silhouette. But then he was lighting the front of the model with a spotlight just to highlight certain elements of her face and hair. So how we actually achieved the shot, we had 2 Profoto strobes firing into the white backdrop to give it that high key look. We then actually set up 2 polyboards on the black sides facing towards the model just so we can control the light on the model herself. We didn't want any additional spill bouncing around the room in any way, so we wanted to maintain that contrasty look on the model. And then we had a 1 light set up just right above her with a spotlight, and then we actually played around with the shapes of the light. Shooting this type of way is actually quite tricky because I could line up the shot, shape up the light perfectly on her face, and if she has a subtle move in any way, it can actually kind of throw the angle off. So shooting this type of shot does require some level of precision on both sides from the model and the photographer. So as you can see from the video itself, she's actually just sitting down in a stool holding that pose whilst I'm there aiming the spotlight as precise as I possibly can before I fire off the shot. Unfortunately, I can't remember the exact power settings, but if this is the type of shot you want to try for yourself, you'd have to play around the power settings anyway. But as a rough guideline, we had the Profoto strobes at the back set to level 7. They were shooting bare bulb at probably maybe 1 meter away from the backdrop itself. And then we had the spotlight set to level 9. I don't see too many photographers using light shaping tools like the spotlight for lighting their models themselves. A lot of the times when I'm seeing these being used, they're typically used for the background lighting, like trying to pretend there's fake blinds and fake windows using those particular gobos. One of the challenges that I had working with the spotlight is my decisiveness, if I'm completely honest. Amy had a selection of gobos, and you can also cut the light into various shapes as you see fit. When I began the shoot, I felt I had a clear vision, which is to shoot that triangle shape on the face. However, then what I found during the shoot is that I didn't quite like that look on Amy. So admittedly, to a degree, I was just cutting freely randomly and kind of just seeing what works, with no real clear vision at that point because I had a clear vision of the triangle, and then when I achieved it, I wasn't happy with it. But where we landed on at the end of the shoot was just a nice, simple diagonal line going across her face just to highlight her eyes. I didn't want it symmetrical to go across because that just looks too obvious and too boring. So the way I decided to actually put the light is actually just going across her face, showing both her eyes, which are the kind of like the most important elements of a portrait, and allowing the rest of the image to kind of fall into shadow. But overall, I'm really happy with how the shoot turned out. I'd say this image here in particular is my favorite from the day, but there's actually a few other shots which I also really like. If you did want to check out more of any Amy's work, there's a link down below to her Instagram page. But also let me know down below if there's any of the other images that you want me to go through in more detail. Other than that, cheers for watching.